Of roles are going to help us do this better in the future. So one of the things that I've come to learn in the last, I'd say 2 years, I've got a lot of experience having done consulting, lots of different industries, lots of different kinds of projects, and I've always had this feeling that a lot of the technical debt that we feel comes from the fact that we're not approaching everything as a product. And so I want to talk about that today. Oh, I'll just turn this on. Okay. I mean, we all know what reactive is, and I would think most people in the room have probably seen this before. The idea that we're going to build elastic and resilient systems through, message-driven architectures that are going to lead to responsive user experiences, right? And the key things about this really are the fact that you want elasticity and you want resilience. I've worked at some companies where they won't even use the word reactive, but they'll talk deeply about the fact that they want elasticity, the ability to scale up and down, and they want resilience. Both in the functional sense, whenever you're talking about business systems that are doing specific, functional domains, and also in the non-functional world, whenever boxes crash and disks go down and you name it. Nope. There we go. Okay, so on your teams, think about this. Who is advocating for the work that is being done around elasticity and resilience? Is it people like the developers yourselves? Is it the product owners? Is it management? That happens sometimes in a top-down way where somebody says, you know what, we are going to have auto-scaling. And you say, well, maybe we don't need auto-scaling right now. And somebody says, yes, we have to have it. And you say, we don't have time to do that. And they say, we are doing it now. Okay, well, that's driving the implementation of, a elastic implementation, right? And that's tricky, right? But if you're not taking this and treating it like a product, you're just going in and doing it, that's not ideal. And I think that one of the things that, having been in the sales cycle around using Akka, and using technologies like Cassandra and Kafka, there's a lot of people who buy into using these technologies and expect that they get this for free. They think that elasticity is just part of what you get. They think that resilience is just somehow baked in, and that's not true. You still have a lot of work to do. So, who's going to advocate for that? And the critical, I'm just going to press it. The critical thing about this is you don't want it to end up as technical debt, because this is where the things are just sort of sitting in a backlog. Everybody knows they got to be done sometime. Nobody's got time because nobody's advocating for them. They're just getting left behind, and you end up with systems that look a lot like these cars tumbling all over the place. That's not good, because then people are going to say, why didn't we get this done? And it's really because you didn't have the advocacy, you didn't have the push, you didn't have the definition, and it's all through somebody who is treating reactive principles like a product. We need reactive product owners. How many people here are an actual product owner? Anybody? All right, we got a couple, yay. I don't think we appreciate enough about what these people do for us. When we look at our functional world, they're doing a lot of tremendous work for us. They're doing all kinds of things. They're advocating for the business value that we are going to deliver when we build software. They're defining the requirements and the success criteria of how we're going to say that we have accomplished what we said we were going to do. They are prioritizing the work with you and stakeholders and trying to figure out, what needs to be done first, what the MVP is going to look like. And then they're signing off and saying, yes, this was done. It met our success criteria as we said it would. These are all really important things. And if we don't treat the ideas of elasticity and resilience in the exact same way, we are flying by the seat of our pants and we will fail. We may get lucky, but that's not something we can count on. We want to be more rigorous in the way we approach this. So what would a reactive product owner do? And it's funny because it probably looked like I didn't change the slide at all. You're seeing very much the same words. But they're going to advocate for this work being done. And that means more than just saying, look, I know that we need to be elastic. We got to put it in there. Let's create an epic for elasticity. No, that's not enough. They have to understand what elasticity looks like. They've got to drive and drill into what is the auto-scaling, criteria that you're going to use? Is it going to be, because you've got memory usage that's extremely high? Is that going to be the factor for going to more boxes? Is it going to be because of disk? Is it because of I/O? Is it going to be because of concurrent connections, right? And those sort of things then have to be drilled in to say, what is the success criteria? What are the bounds for scaling up and scaling down? This should all be part of the definition of the work that you are doing. So they define those requirements and the success criteria, so you then have something to test based on, right? And when we look at the idea of reactive principles and stuff like that, this comes in both the functional and non-functional sense, as I was saying. This means that there's also a partnership with the functional product owners who are going to work there, and I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. But this is where they're prioritizing that work in concert with other product owners who are helping build this one vision of the entire project. And then they sign off on the completion of the work. They're the ones saying that we have done what we think we needed to do. Does that mean that they had to have everything considered from the outset? If you're building pacemakers, maybe it does. But for the most of us who are out there building software systems on the web and stuff like that, probably not the biggest deal in the world if you happen to have missed something. These are all learning things that are going to take place over time. They can be driven through the priorities of the backlog and then pushed into production. One of the really tricky things about this that I found was we don't think about roles and responsibilities. I was at a company recently, and we actually did know that we needed to treat roles and responsibilities as a critical function of the way we worked. And yet we didn't sit down and do it because it just wasn't time, right? And there was also, who's going to help us do this, right? Who is going to be the person who's going to walk us through our definition of roles and responsibilities? And let me explain to you what I mean by that. Imagine you are going into production, and you've got everything done on a platform in the cloud that is extremely well designed from a security by design perspective, right? So you have thought about what you need to encrypt and tokenize. You've thought about what people should have access to what, where. Maybe in production, nobody can open up a shell against your database and actually perform any queries because that's something you really wouldn't want to have from a security perspective. Okay, but if you have a production issue then in the database, whose responsibility is it to address that? We're going to sit down as good developers building microservices and architectures like that. We're going to create runbooks. And if you don't have runbooks, I highly recommend that you check out Katie McCaffrey's talk about runbooks when she was at Twitter. She also has a template on her GitHub page that I shamelessly have stolen in the past as often as I can. Because it's so important to have an idea of what to do when the things go wrong in a certain way. And in particular, you also need to have a really clear idea of whose responsibility it is to attack these problems. Yes, there is going to be one person or two people on the PagerDuty, shift whenever something goes wrong. Who do they call? Whose responsibility is it to deal with this based upon what they see in the runbook, based upon this kind of issue? Or worse yet, when it's not something that we've ever seen before. Whose responsibility is it to deal with it? And when you're talking about larger organizations, these have to be really clearly defined because these are the APIs of your org. And you know what? They have to be revisited regularly. So when you look at a reactive product owner, they're sitting down and saying, what are the success criteria? But they can also be the person helping drive through who is responsible for what job whenever something goes wrong. And that's really a critical function. I wish that I had done this before in some of my previous jobs, and it has come back to bite me. So how do they fit into your team? And I want to talk about this sort of at a project level. Imagine you had to build a payment system or something like that. It's a large-scale system. It's going to handle a whole bunch of transactions, and you are a development team that has to work on this from an engineering perspective. You interact with the business in some way that is typically outside of the realm of most developers. We don't have to worry about that. Our product owners do, right? And it starts really at the top where you might have a technical product manager. And this is the person who is going to be outwardly facing, talking to business stakeholders to understand what business value is the highest priority, needs to be delivered, how to build this system, what is going to be success. And they are the ones who are ultimately going to sign off and say, we built what we said we were going to build. So this is very much an outward leadership function. And then interestingly, after listening to Anthony's talk, we have architects. Not all organizations value architects, and this can be a cultural thing. I've seen some really large companies who say, we don't do architects. Maybe that's fine. Maybe that works for them. In the case of larger organizations that tend to be a little bit more conservative in the way they approach things, it is a good idea to have somebody who knows the lay of the land of the existing systems that are going to be talking to you, or you talking to them, and understanding the way those protocols are going to work, and being able to build those large-scale diagrams that communicate effectively, just like Anthony was saying, how these systems are going to work. So it's, again, a very outward leadership function that these people are working with you and the rest of the organization to define success at a technical level. Now we get into the product owner realm. And we've already discussed a little bit about what a product owner is. From the functional perspective, these are the people who are taking what the product manager is getting from the business and turning that into the actionable work. In cases where I've worked before, we used domain-driven design very successfully to do this. We would use event storming. I don't know, how many people are doing event storming? Anybody? This is a huge help in understanding the way systems should work. And really, this is where this group should be interacting as a whole. When you're sitting down and talking about the system, technical people and business people should be in a room together trying to figure out what this thing looks like. What are the inputs to the system that result in these kind of outputs, right? The functional product owner is going to sit down and write those epics from the functional perspective. What business value are we trying to deliver? But they should be working hand in hand with a reactive product owner, or you can call them maybe a non-functional product owner, responsible for doing all of the same work, but taking into account and driving the work around the elasticity and the resilience and the non-functional requirements about, you know, what are our uptime expectations. I mean, that is resilience, I guess. Any other non-functional requirements that may exist in the system. And by working together, you now have a coherent picture of a full backlog that has been prioritized from a functional and non-functional perspective. Nothing should be left on the floor. If it is technical debt, it's only because of time constraints as opposed to, you know, having not thought about it, right? And then whenever you start looking at the development teams themselves, you have the product analysts who are responsible for doing work around building the, you know, oh goodness, we have epics, and then we have stories, user stories, thank you. We have user stories that need to be documented and described and even turned into possibly BDD tests. And then we have the lead engineers of the dev teams working hand in hand with them. The lead engineers of the dev team should be the people responsible for making sure that you are meeting the requirements of development. Are you getting your coding standards done? Are the tests passing? Is the coverage high enough? All of that kind of stuff. The product analysts are saying, is the user story properly being represented through the test suite that we have, and are we accomplishing what we said we would do for the user story? The functional product owner is sitting there at the epic level and signing off and saying that this is the work that had to be done to complete this epic. Same thing for the reactive product owner, you know, when it comes to the resilience and elasticity. So this is the way I think I've seen be extremely successful in building out a team to build software that is going to be thinking about the right thing to do at the right time, especially in a time-constrained environment. I don't know about anybody else, but every project I go on, somebody says it's got to be done by X date. And it's very rare, actually, that I get to do an MVP. It's very rare that I can say, yeah, we're just going to ship this one small thing. Now, the MVP ends up being a really large system itself, and it's going to take about a year to do. And that's not ideal, but it's a reality of business that we can't necessarily change. Having a structure like this, having people focused on the right kinds of roles, but also, let's face it, you know, representing the work that needs to be done in an effective way is transformative if you have this kind of structure. Now the question becomes, who's going to be this person? Can you run out and hire somebody with these skills? Somebody who understands elasticity and the technical challenges around being able to scale systems up and down. What about somebody who understands resilience and knows the various implementations around resilience, whether it's circuit breakers or akka using supervision models and stuff like that? It's hard to find somebody who has that skill set and also wants to be a product owner. Now, believe it or not, it's not as tedious of work as it sounds to everybody. There are people out there who do enjoy writing things down and making clarity of these kinds of situations and driving meetings and pushing priorities. And sometimes they can be on your engineering team. I recommend that you have different members of your team take on this role at varying times, or maybe for varying parts of the project. One person is the reactive product owner for this part. One person is the reactive product owner for another. And find out who does like it. I talked to an extremely well-known engineer that I bet you every single person in this room knows. Every single person in this room has heard of this person. And they have taken on a product role, temporarily, at their current organization, and they are loving it. Even though they're one of the best-known developers in the entire world, they are really enjoying their work in doing this kind of product definition for an extremely important project for their organization. I don't feel comfortable giving their name out or anything like that, but if you want to, I might be able to talk to you about it at some point. Now, that said, you may find somebody in your team who really enjoys doing this. And if not, I don't want this to be a drudgery. I don't want this to be the sort of thing where people are like, it's my turn to be the product owner. I don't want to do it. It should be something people on your team see value in. Hopefully, as a leader in your organization, you can help them see the importance of this work. And just to give you an idea of the kinds of companies that are thinking in this perspective, Nike. I just did a random search to start looking around, and it wasn't easy because there aren't a lot of search terms you can think of. How do you look for a non-functional product owner kind of thing? And I got lucky. I found a couple. Nike is out there looking for people that do exactly this sort of work. I know this is happening right now at Starbucks because I used to work there. This is happening in organizations that are both the engineering organization but also the cloud platform organization, where you have a product owner for the cloud platform itself. Being driven, treating it like a product instead of just saying, yeah, we got to implement Kubernetes for everybody. We'll just throw it in there and install it. What does that mean? If you don't define the success criteria, does that allow them any leeway in understanding what it is they had to deliver? So it's very important that people start taking on this kind of approach. And I think you're going to see more and more people develop this skill set. Try and build it in your organization. See if there are people out there that you can hire. I do think it's easier to take a technical person and have them take on this kind of product owner role than it is to find a product owner who is going to really deeply understand these non-functional concepts. Because it's not the kind of challenge that they've been asked to do before. A lot of them probably have been asked to do it on the side, and they probably have tried to do it as best they can, but it's not a core thing to their job, and it probably wasn't their focus. So please, treat Reactive like a product. Start building software in a holistic way, the same way that you would from the business value perspective of the functional delivery and the non-functional delivery. Thank you.